Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined by Thomas Annunziata. I can't believe I got that. Of course, part of the Mazda Shootout, which will be at a later date because of the current situation going on in the state of Florida with Tropical Storm Nicole. How's it going?
It's going good. How about you, man?
Doing well. With the shootout being postponed and all that, figured why not get to know some of you. And Thomas, first off, usually just like to start off with this one, just how did you get into racing?
My dad used to race, and so did my dad's dad. So it's in the family, but they drag raced. So my grandpa used to street race. My dad drag races, and I wasn't fully into it. I don't know what I was doing at the time. I got into it at 10. So it was just a rainy day one day, and me and my dad got bored, and we went electric go-karting. And I didn't realize how much I loved it till I went, and then we started going every weekend, and then it eventually progressed into outdoor go-karts, and it continued down the line, and now I'm here today.
Okay, so obviously racing is something that you could race stock cars, well, of course, NASCAR, open wheel, IndyCar, or you can go the sports car route, you can go the drag racing route. There's so many different avenues you can go. Of course, so there's also Formula One too. But what made you decide to try the sports car
route? There's a lot more opportunities in sports cars. There's a lot more classes and series, and I just felt like it was the best opportunity for me to make a career and a living racing.
Yeah. So obviously, sports car racing hasn't really seen, like these. Obviously, we got Roman DeAngelis, who's of course in his early 20s, and obviously 17-year-olds have raced in the top level of IMSA. Just ask Tristan Nunez, of course, fellow former Mazda driver. Just kind of talk about like what kind of have you be part of this and working with Mazda and all those things.
Well, what got me to work with Mazda is, I started in karting, and I used to race with Connor Zillage, which me and Connor are really close friends. And I started a lot of years late. I was always later than he would. So he would try out something or start racing something, and I would end up doing it the year after. And so he was one of the first drivers to get into Mazda and the Spec Miatas, and then went into through the Mazda route. And he's now, he just did the MX-5 Cup season. But I decided to get a taste of Spec Miata. And that's how I started. We started in Spec Miata. I learned all the basics in racing, and racing close with a bunch of guys, learning the draft. And then eventually got up and went into the Spec MX-5 series. Did really well in that. We won both championships in that series, and I've now find myself as a finalist in the MX-5 Cup Shootout. So that's how it started.
Yeah, the MX-5 Cup racing is really cool, and plus I currently drive a Mazda, so that's also cool too. There you go. But going into the shootout, whenever it will be. It'll happen. Not like COVID or where things got postponed and stuff. But obviously, going into that, whenever it does happen, because it will. But overall, when do you think? How are you preparing for something like
that? I don't know. I don't know if it's really preparing. I know what I have to do, but it's really been the whole year. Last year, I was a finalist for the Spec MX-5 Shootout, and at the time, I just got out of go-karts, right? So I didn't know all the off-track stuff I needed. I didn't know how to really talk to people. I didn't know how to, present myself or represent sponsors or dress up the way they wanted to. And I made some mistakes in the car on track. So it's just been the whole year. We got 5 major sponsors now. I've been in public speaking classes and marketing classes. I now know how to market myself, talk to people. It doesn't matter what it is. So I overall, over the last year, I feel like I'm way more prepared and a lot more mature as a driver. And I'm now able to compete in this MX5 Cup shootout, and I know I have a chance at winning.
Okay, so you kind of mentioned it a little bit. Learning, making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everyone does things they're not proud of, me included. But going into that, what was the biggest thing that you learned from the mistakes that you made?
Um, just being more professional and realizing how much more it takes to be a more complete driver. Like I showed up in Nike shorts and in some old fourth grade Under Armour t-shirt while everyone else was in suits. Like I had no idea. I thought it was pretty bad. Talking, I was very shy and to myself. I didn't really like socializing and talking to people. Obviously, you can't be like that in this business and in racing. So, I mean, I'm a completely different person from then till now. But even on track, like just a few mistakes, maybe over driving, maybe going through the grass or missing a corner. Just I'm overall everything's clicked, and I'm a lot more complete driver.
So yeah, um, going into that, were you scared when you kind of like started like when you go back to like taking like these classes, doing things like this? Um, what has that been like? Have you done a lot of these interviews before?
This year I have, and I started in the beginning of the year, and it was like the single scariest thing ever in the beginning of the year. It took a really long time to really open up and get like this, but uh, in the end, it's all in your head, and I had to just block it out and realize I'm just talking to you. It's nothing scary, and it's something I should be intimidated doing, and I got over it, but it wasn't good in the beginning.
I mean, the thing is, it takes practice to get better at
It
these. And
does.
now, look at you now. I mean,
I know.
of course, you're from New Jersey, right?
Yep.
What's that like? What's it like living on the East Coast?
It's nice, it's a bit country. There's a lot of horses, a lot of farms, a lot of trees, there's a lot of old, you know, places. It's super old actually. I mean, you could go drive by some places and there's some houses and buildings from like the 1700s and stuff. It's cool from that perspective, Christmas, snow, but there's no racing there. So that's kind of a con to it. Besides one go-kart track and a parking lot I used to race at, there's no racing there.
New
So
Jersey Motorsports Park too.
got that one. But when I did race go-karts, we'd only go there like once a year in that series. So yeah,
You should go to Lime Rock. Lime Rock's a fun place.
I would love to. I haven't been in a series where they would host that Lime Rock, but I'm now in the Trans Am TA2 series, and I believe Lime Rock's on the schedule next year, so should be going down there.
And stuff. All right. Well, yeah, and let's end it there. Trans Am, of course, you've been in those TA2 cars, and obviously they provide a lot of things, and it's just a good solid series for a lot of drivers to learn more about road courses. A lot of drivers from NASCAR uh, go there as well. What's that been? What's it like to just learn and drive those cars?
Well, those cars are super, super physical. Like I've been going to the gym a lot and running and conditioning myself because there's like no driver aids. I mean, you need 1,000 pounds of brake pressure just to stop the car, and it's a 75-minute race. It gets really hot in the cars. They're super heavy. Yeah, the tires, that has a ton of horsepower. So you got to be able to modulate the throttle and get around the racetrack and have tires at the end of the race to pounce. So from that perspective, it's taught me a lot how to drive high horsepower race cars. And the competition there is just crazy. I mean, we were just at COTA for the last race of the TA2 season for the championship finale, and it was a 53 car field. Um, my first ever race was a month ago. I don't necessarily count it as a race. I mean, we had a lot of technical issues, and we didn't make a single lap of practice. I got 4 laps of qualifying and just jumped into the race, and then we had another mechanical issue that failed. So that last weekend, I had my first taste at a race and racing in those cars, and in the end, we finished on the podium, which was incredible. And there's a lot of NASCAR there. There's a lot of opportunities there. And we opened up a lot of eyes to many teams, and we're getting some calls. And I can't thank everyone enough there and at Nitro Motorsports. They work hard, but it's a really good series, and I'm surprised at what we were able to do.
All right. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. Good luck in the shootout in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Casey. See you guys.